Hello, everybody. This is the Chocolate News Podcast. I'm your co-host, John Alexander Reese.
And I'm your co-host, Andrea Carter.
And if you did not know, the Cincinnati Herald has been around since 1955 and is the leading African American owned newspaper in the greater Cincinnati area and Northern Kentucky area. How's it going, Andrea?
It's going great, John. I should just carry a bowl of popcorn with me everywhere. Only because this is a very exciting time in this election. Just to be around people talking, hearing what people are saying, doing. I just got my list to contact people as part of the NAACP, reach out to voters to make sure people are voting. In fact, I got to send out my texts to folks. My sister, she's down in Florida. She's mailing postcards. She's doing her own list version of it all. So we both, family wise, we've been helping to get out the vote or work, whatever's going on to get out and make sure people are voting and talking about the issues and watching everything. So it's been a very exciting time to be in America to see who's going to win, what the reaction is going to be. And on top of that, it's cold.
Yes, it
I
is.
went I went from one to the other. I mean, it's exciting to be around voters to talk about it, but at the same time is it's cold. I was out and about yesterday, my day job, as a community engagement specialist. We were out. I was with my colleagues walking Avondale, and we all were like, okay, it's cold. I had another person's like, I don't see how you do this walking around. I said, once you start walking, you warm up, but it's really cold. I got to convert my closet. I haven't done it yet. This caught me by surprise. I thought we
Yeah.
had another month,
Yeah,
you
me
know.
too.
Anyway,
Yeah.
so, but life is good. It's exciting time,
Yeah.
and I'm just you know, taking it one day at a time and making sure I have enough popcorn on hand so I can watch the story of life go by.
Oh, yeah. Speaking of life, what is the chocolate news of the week?
Well, it's 29, about 20 something days left for the general election. People are already voting. Early voting has started here in Ohio. Early voting has started in, I think, Pennsylvania and Georgia. Around the country, early voting is starting. In Georgia, day one yesterday, they had a record turnout of over 100,000 people voting, which is
Wow.
never, it's unbelievable. And it's interesting to see who's turning out what. The polls are getting tighter than they've already been tight, but they're getting tighter. Um, And I think what's interesting is that people are looking at the pockets. You're seeing the right now there's a fight over black men. Who's going to get their vote?
Hmm.
Um, and and it's interesting. I was out with the Black Lives Matter, well, Black Voters Matter bus when it came through Cincinnati about 3 weeks ago. And they did four stops. I was at three. And at the third stop was at a church. And the people that we're with, both national and local, they were talking to the men in the audience who are around getting, getting the resources, getting some food, things like that. And you had the gamut of, yes, I'm going to vote. You heard, yeah, he gave us a check. Um, to, yeah, I don't know if I'm going to vote for her. She's kind of cute. Maybe not. I don't know if I'm going to do that or not because, in the excuses that we heard from the men about who they were going to support, not, and I mean, down ticket races, that was another issue, but just nationally, the struggle is real. Not everyone is like that. But if you look at the articles, look at the comments that the women were saying what they're seeing. There was one woman down in South Carolina who is a barber who said, yeah, Black men have a very difficult time supporting female candidates. Even in the church, they don't support a female leadership. So that issue is real. But here's my issue about it. Trump thinks he has it in with Black and Latino voters. He even said that you're crazy if you don't vote for me. He claims he's done so much for the Black community. He hasn't. At the same time, Kamala Harris, the vice president, has gone around the country. She is, because this is an unusual campaign, she has to do those interviews that expose her to a huge swath of people while she goes out and does rallies and speaking engagements and get to the rural community and the Gen Zs and the millennials and everybody. And she has gone on 60 Minutes, which I thought was a very good interview. Um, she did Howard Stern, which I thought was very interesting to go on his show. But his audience is over 10 million. Call Her Daddy, over 10 million. 60 Minutes, that's about 4 million. Charmaine Lagarde, she did a radio town hall with him, taking questions, especially from a lot of Black men, which I thought was a very good interview. If you have not listened to it, you need to go back and hear it because she was very frank about questions asked, and they did not hold back. They really came down hard on her, and she held her own and responded well. And she said that she doesn't expect a Black voter to vote for her. She has to earn their vote, just like Black men. She has to earn their vote. And but there has been an interesting article that I want to point in the Hill has an interesting article about well, one is how Democrats can get Black men off the fence into the polls. But there's another article out that talks about, okay, we're going after Black men, but what about the white men who are mainly voting for Donald Trump? What does it say about them? And so there's all of that going on. What's your opinion about this, John?
I don't know. It's complicated. I mean, I'm all for Kamala. I don't see why you wouldn't vote for Kamala at this point, but I don't know. I guess I can't say for other people.
I
It
mean,
it it, it just seems like a no. It just seems like an easy decision to make.
it is an easy decision, but for Black men have a hard time putting a woman in a leadership position. And I think this goes back from a historical perspective because they've been put down by white women or women in general or some have you. It's a very misogynistic attitude. Um,
Yeah,
I think
I get that, but black women have been like so supportive of black men. Like, a lot of the times, the black woman, they were the driving force in the family because unfortunately, sometimes black men, they were either in jail or, or just killed off. So, it's like, black community, strong black women, throughout history.
yes. And
So
Black women have been there supporting Black men. I mean, during the civil rights movement, the
yeah,
movement would not have moved forward if there had not been women behind the scenes helping out and doing part of the hard work of moving
yeah,
forward. Um, yes, Martin Luther King was seen as was the leader of it, but the Black women behind the scenes were doing stuff.
yeah,
Even from Malcolm X,
yeah,
the Sisters of the Nation of Islam supported him.
exactly.
I mean, even when he broke with the Nation of Islam, his wife and other supporters supported him. And even throughout the years behind the scenes, Al Sharpton, Jesse Jackson, there are women behind the scenes supporting their efforts. And it's time now that the script is slowly being flipped. And and I think men need to get off the couch and take a moment. Why are you going to vote against your interests? Because it doesn't work for you. But she's it's going to be interesting to see because Donald Trump, he's telling everybody what he's going to do. He's not lying about it. He's using coded, hated language in at his rallies. Kamala Harris said at her rally in Erie, Pennsylvania, She's been talking about what he's going to do, her plan, what she's going to do. She's coming out, she's giving more details. And then to prove what Donald Trump is saying, she said, roll the tape. And she rolled the video clip of him saying what he was going to do and who he was calling the enemy within. And the enemy within is everybody who does not agree with him. And I think that's the bigger issue. And I think, it's very interesting to see who's picking up the ball, who's talking about it, as you see the other candidates on the down ticket around the country. See what they're picking up, how they're, what are their talking points about their opponent, and bring out, they did this, they did that. I know in Florida, they're talking about the various issues, but also FEMA is playing a huge role of who voted to fund FEMA and who didn't. That's a big issue because a lot of Republicans did not vote to fund FEMA. And guess what? Who needs FEMA right now? Everyone who got hit by Helene and what was the other hurricane?
Milton.
Milton.
Yeah.
Now you would think I would remember Milton because that was the name of my uncle. Anyway, so I would just say watch the interviews. Watch who's appearing where, watch who's refusing to go where. It's not just about talk, it's about action. And everything that Donald Trump said he was going to do, he did during his first term. And, if he loses, the people surrounding the Republican Party, we have to watch what happens after what happens, whoever wins on November 5th. We have to
Right.
watch the next steps because it's going to get ugly. Because we have a man who refuses to accept defeat, especially from a woman. So, that being said, anyway, speaking of elections, locally, you know that we congratulated last week. We said congratulations to Reggie Harris. It was his last week on city council. If you look on Reggie Harris's LinkedIn page, on Monday, he said, I'm starting a new position. He's now the assistant secretary for HUD. He's in DC right now. He's moved on with his life, started new. But he appointed Mika Owens to pick his successor to his seat. And, there's been in the media, there was a lot of speculation about who may get it, who's being considered, who applied for it, who interviewed for it. And the one name that did not appear on anybody's list was Evan Nolan. Now, Evan Nolan is not new to City Hall. He was a city solicitor 2 years ago. He was considered as a replacement for Greg Landsman's seat, but didn't realize that he could not keep his job as a city solicitor and serve on city council. He had to resign. So he ended up going back into private practice. But he served as the treasurer to AFTAB's mayoral campaign. He helped run the city council campaigns behind the scenes. He helped run the outreach for that. He's not new. He's very familiar with the operations of City Hall, of city government. I mean, from a legal standpoint, he understands what's going on, but he's never run for office. And he has never been on anybody's radar, never been seen in anybody's community. But well, I shouldn't say seen in anybody's community. I would just say that he's not known. And so what happened? Um, Mika Owens picked him to replace Reggie Harris.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe he's going to be sworn in on Thursday.
Right.
Um, and so once that occurs, then, we'll find out the reshuffling of committees because, Reggie was chairman of the Budget and Finance Committee. So we'll find out who's going to be the next chairman of the Budget and Finance Committee because the next wave of budgets, the city budget begins in January. So they need someone in place right now to handle that. So all this to say that the NAACP has sent a letter calling the decision of Evan Nolan as disappointing because city council went from a black majority to a white majority.
Mm.
And he and it's kind of disappointing from the end this, from a Black perspective, as Scotty Johnson spoke today on Lincoln Ware Show, that, the Black community, it took a long time to get someone, um, to get a Black person, at least one Black person on city council, not just two. And to go from that to a majority on city council is a significant development in this town.
Yeah.
And to not replace a Black, and we don't have that many Black men serving on city council. In fact, we just had Reggie and who did I just say? Reggie and Scotty Johnson
Right.
serving. We had two Black males. Now we just have one Black male serving on city council. Because the rest are women in terms of being Black. And it's very rare to have a Black man on city council. So to replace said Black man with a white man doesn't sit too well, at least from a historical perspective. Mika Owens, hearing about the disappointment, she sent out a statement saying that her decision was her focus was getting the next member on council on board as soon as possible and focus on the important issues at hand. Division is the opposite of progress. Well, that's what she said. According to the NAACP, in their release statement, they said her choice sends a harmful message that the importance of Black representation, particularly Black male representation, can be easily disregarded. At a time when our nation is grappling with the legacies of institutional and systemic racism and striving for equity and inclusion, this decision is a step backward. It dismisses racial equity and erases the contributions and presence of Black men in spaces where they're already underrepresented. What makes this even more concerning is that it comes from someone who, as a Black woman, has directly benefited from the very racial equity framework she now chooses to ignore. If she believes she hasn't benefited from these efforts, she is out of touch with the very processes that enabled her to walk through doors opened by the sacrifices of many. By neglecting the principles of racial equity, Councilwoman Owens has reinforced the damaging notion that Black voices, experiences, and leadership are replaceable. Her failure to apply a racial equity lens in such a critical moment reveals a troubling disregard for the consequences of diminishing Black male representation. This decision is not only disappointing, it is disrespectful and cannot be overlooked. So that is the NAACP, the letter that was sent out, their comments. And Scotty Johnson spoke on Lincoln Ware, and he said that no one knew, or at least he was not consulted as this decision. He was waiting to hear, to provide input on who was being considered, and that she just took it upon herself to make the decision, and there you go.
Hmm.
Now,
Interesting.
mind you, that Evan Dillon is also a very good friend of the mayor.
Okay.
And I mean, even though this is disappointing from a Black perspective, from a political perspective, it wins people points.
Gotcha.
So I think this decision was more political than racial.
Gotcha.
Because, I mean, if you think about it, who in the next election, who has higher aspirations? City council is up for reelection next year. The mayor is up for reelection next year. There is speculation that if Harris wins, he might get a job in the Harris administration. That may or may not happen. Right now, as far as I know, right now he's running for reelection. But again, there's speculation abound around who's going to be doing what. The political landscape next year could be totally different of who's going to run for mayor. If Aftab steps out, who's going to pick up that ball from the Democratic Party? Could it be the vice mayor, who was number one in leading city council election? Was it Mika, who will be number two leading city council elections? Or would it be someone from the Republican side who might want to lead or try their hand at being mayor? We don't know. But the picking of Evan Nolan um, from a person who understands the processes of City Hall and who understands the ins and outs is fantastic. And everyone else is we just need to see what's going to go on. So there's that. So it's gonna be next year's gonna be interesting. You thought this election year is gonna be interesting. Locally, it's gonna be even more interesting. So
Right.
um other good juicy hot topics real quick. One is if you have not seen it yet, there is a uh the Freedom Center um has done as part of the 2024 Photo Focals Biennial. The Freedom Center is going to debut a short film on examining the slave pen and that sits in their permanent exhibit at the Freedom Center. I have visited the slave pen. I've seen it several times. First time I saw it, it was very emotional. Second time, very emotional. Third time, it's always interesting to walk through there, see it, examine it, and then I very quickly want to get out of it because I understand what that represents. It is a wooden structure that was falling down. It was sitting on a Kentucky farm. They bought it, they brought it in, they refurbished it, and but it represents the housing of people who were sold as slaves.
Hmm.
And when you think about that was crammed, filled with people before a slave auction, it's very emotional.
Yeah.
So, and it has the chains in there and everything else. I recommend everyone going to see it at least once
Right.
to understand that this is a physical evidence of what was. I mean, you have to remember Ohio was, no, I'm sorry, Kentucky was a slave state.
Yeah.
Ohio was, Ohio River is the River Jordan. Slaves knew if they crossed the Ohio River, it was freedom.
Yeah.
Those who stayed in Cincinnati stayed despite the rough treatment. Those who moved on ended up settling in Dayton, Columbus, Akron, or going on to Canada, or moving off to other states like Michigan and every other place, or Chicago. So I would say check out the short film. It's very interesting. It's a great way to learn a little bit of piece of history. It is directed by the great Alfonso Weston. He is so talented.
I've
Um,
heard.
oh, if you ever get a chance to meet him and talk to him, Alfonso is so great to talk to about bringing out um, history, bringing out the importance of highlighting a subject on film and how you do that. And he has such a good eye, and he's a very good director. Um, he did, in fact, Alfonso, remember all the reality shows about making of the band and everything?
Hmm.
And remember, what was that show where the young people lived in the house before Big Brother? Um,
Was that the real world?
The Real World. He directed some of those shows.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yes, so he's a good guy and it's very well done. So I ask everyone to check that out.
Okay.
Another highlight real quick, you know, the retail market industry is very, very difficult right now because of all the online stores. CVS and Walgreens are not are also facing problems because of online stores. Some are better set than others. So I would just say watch if you have your prescriptions, excuse me, at a CVS or at a Walgreens, watch very carefully where they are because both corporations have announced that they're going to close stores over the next year. And there are some stores that make money. There are some stores that don't make money. So I would just say be aware of where you get your healthcare needs, your prescription needs, and just be aware that your prescription may end up moving to another store. Um, I don't know what the list is yet of who's going to close where, but when you see the stories, watch, be aware, ask questions, and be proactive and be up to date on what's going on. Um, I have not heard anything about any store closing in Cincinnati, but just be aware of what's going on and be ready and be prepared. I believe in having a plan B just in case.
Right.
Um, and then something exciting. Well, before that, Sean Diddy's back in the news. I believe you said your wife saw the TikTok video about this.
Yeah.
Um, um, a woman who claimed that Sean Diddy Combs was involved in Tupac Shakur's murder. She has filed a lawsuit claiming that she was gang raped as payback because of this claim.
Mm.
Um, we don't know if this is true or not.
Right.
Um, I have an article from the New York Post, which is the place to get all of your highly page 6 was the TMZ of rumors before TMZ.
Hmm.
And so TMZ's done pretty New York Post page 6 is pretty good on getting the stories, especially since they're based in New York. And they're up because Sean Pitty is in prison. Well, I should say he's being held in jail in New York. They're all up on this story. So everything that's happening with Sean Diddy, I would say read the New York Post because they're going to have the news. Um, I don't like everything they cover, but when it comes to page 6, they're what they have is usually pretty good. It's not speculative. Um, so there's that. Another interesting thing, a different aspect. If you ever get to the National Zoo in DC in about a month, you'll get to see the new pandas that just came over from China. The last pair were sent back over a year ago, or I think 2 years ago. And a new pair, Panda Diplomacy, was sent yesterday. They were, believe it or not, FedExed by China on what they called Panda Express.
That's adorable.
Isn't that adorable? I love
Yeah.
that. Bao Li, I hope I'm pronouncing this right. Bao Li and I think it's Quen Bao traveled um, from China to DC. They touched down at Dulles, and then they were taken off the plane, put on a truck, and they traveled 25 miles to the National Zoo, which is located in Northwest DC. They were in dig this special FedEx trucks for the trip, and they were going to spend some time in quarantine to make sure that they are healthy and that they get used to um, being in America. Oh, I'm sorry. I said next month. I'm sorry. They're going to debut publicly in January at the National Zoo.
Gotcha.
So, I'm going to put that on my list. And they'll be here for the next 10 years. So I would just say that get ready. Panda diplomacy is back in at the National Zoo. And I wonder if they're going to have a panda cam. You know?
Panda Camp?
A panda cam, camera, so
Oh,
you can
Panda
watch it.
Cam. Oh,
Panda
yeah.
cam. I wonder
They
if they're gonna
told
do panda cam. I hope they do.
they probably should.
Um, and just so happens, Bao Li, he has roots in DC because he is the son of Bao Bao, who was born at the National Zoo in 2013. And Bao Bao was sent back and he came. So isn't that great?
No, that's great.
I never thought I would talk this much about pandas,
I know,
but
right?
they're so cute though.
They are.
They're just so cute. Anyway, and so last but not least, an interesting story that I found about Dr. Dwayne Edwards. And Dr. Dwayne Edwards He is a shoe designer, and he holds over 50 patents for shoe designs. And he's also president of Pensoli Lewis College, which is HBCU. And it's a um, new college that is just was founded in 2020 in Detroit, Michigan. And he has partnered with Target to launch a new line of footwear created by potential shoe designers from HBCUs. Isn't that great?
That's spectacular.
Isn't that fantastic? I mean, it's I know everyone talks, people don't understand, Black people, especially inventors, have a hard time getting capital to do thus and so unless they get with a major corporation and hold patents. I mean, Procter and Gamble was the leader in having Black inventors under in their employee to develop patents and products. I mean, Chris Smitherman's father was like one of the leading inventors for Procter and Gamble, and we thank him, Chris's father, for Pringles.
Hmm.
Yes. I think Chris's father is also responsible for I don't know if it was Bounce or the development of dryer sheets or another product that was like dryer sheets. I can't remember. But the Smithermans, there are a number of patents held that are co-owned by Procter and Gamble and the Smithermans
Did not
for a
know that.
number of products that were developed by his father.
Hmm.
Yes. So, Black inventors are they in great in invent some great think about it. The traffic light was invented by a Black man.
Yeah.
Look where and so you never know who's going to invent what and whether it's from propane or or using propane or developing technology. We talked about the man who owns one of the top technology companies in the world. He's a billionaire. He's like number 84 on the Forbes list. Black guy. So look up Dwayne Edwards. Look for the shoes in Target. The name of the product line is UNOS. I cannot pronounce this. Um, but it's adjustable footwear. It's created for growing families. So it's a shoe that will adjust, especially for kids, because kids grow fast
Oh yeah.
and you always have to buy a new shoe size. So it's very interesting to see what's going to happen. The original article on this was published by Afrotech, and Afrotech is a good place for top things that are happening in the Black community when it comes to business, technology, inventions, things like that. So, congratulations to Dr. Edwards. I hope he sees much success, and hopefully, we'll hear more about the new HBCU in Detroit. That's going to be focusing on building businesses and inventions in the Black community. And that is all the Black news for today. I mean, all the chocolate news for today.
All right. Well, thank you, Andrea. And that's it for today's show. I want to thank Andrea again for all the great chocolate news.
My pleasure.
And remember, folks, you can find more information about today's topics and past podcast episodes at www.thecincinnatiherald.com, the session newsletter, or on our social media. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Threads. And be sure to subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast app. You can listen to us on Apple, Spotify, or whenever you get your podcast from. I'm John Alexander Reese,
And I'm Andrea Carter.
and have a good day.